So before you start programming your client's device, I want you to become familiar with the 4 purposes of communication.
What are those again?
Okay, I'm going to go over each one, and then I want you to think about it specifically for your client. The first one is to communicate needs and wants. And this tends to be easier for speech pathologists to program because we're dealing with a lot of single words, concrete objects that can be easily depicted with pictures or represented with pictures. And that makes it easily accessible for your client and easily understood by other people. The most important thing is just that you know your client's likes and dislikes so that you can include objects that they will most likely request or things that they might need assistance with, that type of thing. So just make it very specific for your client. The next purpose of communication is to establish social closeness. And this one is a little more difficult to program when comparing it to needs and wants, but it is just as important. In fact, it accounts for about 50 to 75% of our communication. The problem is that it tends to be abstract language and not as concrete as needs and wants. And it's also unpredictable because it depends on who your client is communicating with and what type of situations that they're in. But what is helpful is that, once again, just getting to know your client on a personal level, getting to know what types of activities they participate in on a daily basis and who they participate with. Because that way you can kind of predict what they might say to that person or what they might say in certain situations and activities that they're doing. What's also important is that you include phrases or ways for them to initiate conversations with other people, because it's important to maintain the relationships that they have, but also to establish new ones, because that will make them more competent as communicators. The third purpose of communication is to share new information. And the key word here is new information because, when we're communicating, we're always sharing information. But in this case, what they're sharing is specific knowledge that your client knows. So, for example, they might be asked the question, what is their favorite movie or favorite book? And that would be your chance to program the plot line of that movie or book so that they can easily access it and transfer it to their communication partner efficiently so that the conversation is going on a more natural level. But it can also be other more objective things like concepts, theories, or step-by-step instructions. It's also difficult to predict, but if you know what the client is familiar with and their interests, then you can talk to them and see what they might need to communicate or what they're typically asked by other people so that you can include that in their device. The fourth purpose is to fulfill conventions of social etiquette, and this one deals with habitual responses that we've been accustomed to because of society mostly. So it's like upholding good manners and being polite. And this will depend on who you're working with and your client's communicative needs, because it is important to be polite and everything. And so it would be beneficial for them to have things like please and thank you programmed into their device. But if it's more important for them to establish social closeness or to express wants or needs, then you should probably put more focus into that when you're programming their device. But give them the opportunity to be able to fulfill the social etiquette one, because that is an important purpose and it'll help them blend in with society more. But just to recap, we talked about communicating needs and wants, communicating for social closeness, to share new information, and lastly, to fulfill social etiquette.